Natalie here with the Fifth Journey, and we're moving on with our foundations videos. So make sure that you have been watching the other ones, especially the Batma one right before this. I'm going to be talking about extensions today. So it is very similar. I'm actually doing this one right after the Batma one because I want everything fresh in my mind, but they go hand in hand. And this is also talking about use of the quadricep. That is a somewhat controversial subject when it comes to ballet and dance, and when to use it, when not to use it. Some people say, don't use your quadricep. Some people say, well, you have to. There's a fine line, not a fine line, there's a difference, and you do, both of them are correct. So there's some aspects where you do not use the quadricep, and there are some that you absolutely must use your quadricep. But the bigger thing is that how you use it correctly. So you want to think about if somebody says, don't squeeze your quadricep. That to me means don't grip your quadricep, but you want to lift. Or they say, use your quadricep, think about lifting the quadricep, not squeezing. With me and with a lot of dancers is, yes, you must use the quadricep to straighten the leg. That is what does that function of the leg. However, the difference is gripping versus lifting. So, and I've talked about this before. So if I'm gripping my quadricep, hopefully you can see, I've got my daisy pants on, you can see those, my little daisies moving up, right? And it also hyperextends my knee, which I don't want to do. And I know some teachers, I don't know if they like that look, they push that look. When I was trained by a professional ballerina, that's who had, she was retired, but I had an amazing ballet teacher when I was in high school, and she told me, she said, if you do not learn to correct that and control and lift, I will not put you on point shoes, because I naturally hyperextend my legs. And she said, you have to fix that. And with everything in dance, she gave me some ideas, some tools, but I had to figure it out. It wasn't something that she could, fix. And that's how dance is, because all of our bodies are different. We are so different. Yes, we have quadriceps, yes, we have legs, whatever, but the way we are put together is very different. So you have to take those tools and you have to apply them to your body. Sometimes you have to stand in front of a mirror really close and say, okay, what happens if I squeeze that muscle in this way? This is one of those instances where you do have to do that, okay? Anyway, so in my case, I had to spend a lot of time, and I talked about this in one of the earlier foundations videos, of lifting, think about lifting my kneecap. That is really the best way to describe it, is engaging the quadricep. So I'm lifting that kneecap, and it's lifting all the way up through the front of my leg. But if I squeeze my quadricep, that gets me where I don't want to be. And it locks my legs in place, and I lose a lot of the motion, the movement that I need, and the mobility that I need. So when I go to my tendu, my leg is engaged, my quadricep is lifted, it is not squeezing. My leg is engaged, not my quadricep. I'm not gripping my quadricep, right? So I'm thinking about my leg as a whole. So we have that turnout, we have the legs, the inner thigh, thinking about wrapping that around. My seat is wrapped around, my pelvis is neutral, my leg is engaged, right? So everything is working as a cohesive piece. It's not just one thing, right? That's what we have to think about. So when it comes to the extension, that is a little bit harder, because we have to, like kind of our last resort is to squeeze that quadricep to hold it up. But there are other things that you need to think about when you're doing that. When you're talking about the Batma, we're talking about that swinging motion, right? That is super important, or if you're doing an attitude, that is super important to work on when we are thinking about getting the leg up. Now with an extension, we have gotten a leg up, but how do we hold it there? So if you're doing a Batma with a hold, or you're doing développé or développé, depending on how you pronounce it. I have had French students in class before, exchange students, and I've heard it both ways. I've done a lot of research on it, so it's like there's two different ways. And développé, développé. Anyway, développé is to develop the leg, and développé is to close it in, or what I tell students, kind of like closing an envelope. That's the best way to think about it. If you're learning, is développé is to develop, envelope is you're closing it in like an envelope. All right, so with that développé, we're going to go up to our passe, retire, and then we're going to extend out from there. With an extension, we're going to do second, because that is the easiest one to do. Now remember, we're going from our natural second position. I'm not going to talk about any of that right now, so make sure that you have everything in check for that position. Going to our fifth position, coming up to your passe retire, and we're going to extend from there. Now, your knee is your guide. If my knee is right in that position, it's not going to go lower than that. If I want my extension to be higher, I have to lift my knee first, and then I extend from there. If you have super flexibility, you can go really high, but you don't want to lift here, and then that's as high as you can go, right? So your knee only goes as high as what your extension is. Since I'm going super slow today, I'm not going to go super high. So I'm actually going to grab. If you can, go ahead and do this. Grab under your thigh. Don't grab the backside. I want you to grab under your thigh because that's going to help rotate it out. And then I'm going to extend out from there. So I'm going to lift a little bit, and I'm going to extend out from there. Now, I do have to use my quadricep more there because that is what's going to hold it up. That and my hip flexors, those muscles right in here, that helps lift those up, right? So I'm going to hold it here, extend out from there. Now you can hold it until you get that position, that feeling, or here. When I let go, that's where I feel it, right there. That's a hip flexor working. And there are exercises that you can do. Bottom-ons are great ones. Leg lifts, that will help develop those muscles. So with a develope, I'm going to lift up, and then I'm going to extend out from there. And I do have to grip a bit more there, okay? When you are doing extensions, it's really good to practice doing them out, hold it, and then control it down. Something I do a lot, if we're even in a jazz class, we're doing bottom-ons across the floor. I just get it up, and then control it down. Get it up, control it down. Don't control it up. Get it up there as quickly as you can, and then you have the control going down. This is really no different than lifting weights. If you are doing weightlifting, you want to get it up and then control it down. Get it up and then control it down. That's something that's been taught for a very long time. Control, it's on the opposite end, okay? So 1 count up, 2 counts down. And this is really the same way. This will help train those muscles. Envelope is the opposite. So we're going to do a nice spot ma up, and then you want to think about lifting the knee again. So we're going to go up and then lift right there to our passe. Up. So I'm doing a swift movement up, coming into my passe, control right there, and then going down. So my quadricep is doing nothing different other than a bas ma. So I'm just doing a bas ma, and then I lift, pulling it in to my passe, right? All right, to the front. Let's just kidding. We're going to do that one last. Derriere. When I lift, we talked about making sure that turnout is correct. So I'm going to come forward a little bit. I'm still lifting here. From here, we've talked a lot of this. I think I said every single time I do a bottom exercise, you want to squeeze where your seat connects to your hamstring on your supporting leg. Because if you just pull into your passe, your behind stays, right? So as you come in with your passe, real quick, make sure that you're on the ball of your foot. You're not hyperextended, right? So my weight is forward. Yes, I know I'm nosediving a little bit, but I want you to squeeze your quadricep and your seat as you pull your leg in. There's really not a lot of movement. So from here, I'm not going here, right? This part is what is pulling my body in, right? Does that make sense? So as I come forward, all I'm going to do is just pull in my passe. So really, just that little last part is all that I'm doing with this movement of that leg, okay? So that is coming in, now going out, going through my coupe, not sickling, going up to my passe retire, and then I'm going to get it on top of that tabletop behind me. Wrap it around a tree. Pretend there's a tree behind you, that you're wrapping it around. It's not here. It's behind you. And then I'm going to lift, extend. As my leg extends out, go back to your attitude. So your body goes for a little bit. As my leg extends out, I'm actually going to shift my weight forward on this foot, because as my leg goes out, you kind of have the tendency to rock back your heel. You don't want to do that. So make sure from your attitude that you are taking your weight forward. You're compensating so the weight stays in the ball of your foot. And if you're coming down, use your supporting leg to bring it in, okay? So lifting up, extending out, and then using your seat to pull it in. My left leg is on fire right now. I'm doing all those. So if you need to switch sides, do that, shake it out. Goodness. Okay. Coming to the front. This one is the hardest one, especially if you're doing bar exercises and the teacher's like, we're going to hold our attitude devant at the end. So sous-sus, attitude devant. This one is very hard because we want to lean back, right? Especially when you're on your releve position. Let's do our, we're going to do Ballet first because that is actually easier. So you're going to go up. Now, just like derriere, I talked about wrapping it around that tree, right? So same thing, pretend there's this tree right in front of you. Our leg's not out here, right? It's in front of us. We are wrapping it around that tree. So I'm going to lift up and then pull it in. If you can see my knee, I actually lifted my knee a little bit as I turned out, okay? So turning it out. So here, I'm actually going to take my body forward because if I try to compensate this way, my weight goes back on my heel, I'm leaning back and I'm on my toe, right? So think about really shifting forward both times, okay? So I'm gonna lift up and I'm gonna fight forward. I'm gonna think about connecting my chest, my rib cage to my heel. And I know I've talked about this in some of the combos that I've done. Anytime we do an extension devant, think about taking, I'm not going like this, right? That's not what I want. But think about connecting. So I'm lifting a little bit more up and over on top of that supporting leg to connect my foot, really my ankle, to the front part of my body. Okay, so I'm gonna lift up. Now think about connect, and that will help me keep this leg up without losing it and losing my balance and falling backwards, okay? So we have our lift, attitude, pull it into passe. This is when that leg snaps back. So not like when we're derriere, when the supporting leg does most of the work here. That's not the same. When I lift up, I have to immediately squeeze my seat of my working leg, wrap it around to get that passe turned out. So lift, attitude, squeeze it. That's what gets it in. And then you close it down. Lift, squeeze the seat, and then pulling it in, right? All right, the opposite way. Don't go too high, especially when you first set out, until you train those muscles to hold it up. Because what will happen is you'll get up, and you're like, oh, this feels great. And your attitude will be clear up here, and then it'll be like, oh my God, and then it'll end up here, right? So grab your inner thigh, and we're gonna go through attitude, and then you're gonna extend there. Now, pull it forward, my leg is shaking. Pull it forward, pull your upper body forward, okay? And then lower it down. So do that a couple times before you decide to let go of the leg. And it's okay if you start out lower, that's totally fine. Making sure that your weight is forward over the ball of the foot, all right? That's a lot to think about on those. And this is one of the hardest exercises to do, but it will really, really help with developing other parts of your movement with dance. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and we'll see you again next time.